When your avoidant ex finally realizes that they lost the best thing that they had, which is you, these are the 5 things that will typically happen. The first is going to be that it doesn't hit them right away. This is due to this avoidant trying to essentially not have to feel or deal with any unwanted emotions. And because of this, they essentially try to push away or distract themselves from these events so that they don't have to deal with those things, because those emotions are essentially going to be unsafe to them and a threat to their emotional well-being. So this avoidant attachment style will run this way of being so that it can protect them from having to deal with those things. However, with that being said, this is only going to be temporary because they can only go so long being this way, and when the emotional dust starts to settle, there's going to be a massive realization that they're going to have to deal with, which is they are losing the best thing that they possibly could have, which is you and the relationship. And it's due to this avoidant attachment style that has caused them to not show up in the relationship the way that they would want and the way that you know that they can. And if they were able to finally do this, the relationship would actually work. And it's in this moment that they start to realize this, and it starts to put them in a panic because they realize that they made a massive mistake, which segues perfectly into the second thing that you typically see happen, and that is they start to compare every connection to you. When they look at new people that they're introducing into their life or a potential partner, they begin to realize at some point in time that they don't have the same emotional safety, or they're not as patient as you were with them. So because of that, they start to long for you and the relationship and are seeking out potential suitors that can fill your footprints. But they quickly start to learn, once they realize this over and over again with new people, that nobody's going to be able to fit your shoes perfectly because you are one of one. We all are one of one. There is not one single person in this entire world who can match exactly who we are, and that's what they start to realize in this moment, because typically they tell themselves over and over again that they can find you in somebody else and that they don't need you, and this is their way of not having to rely on you because they know that they're going to essentially push away from you at some point in time whenever you bring up something that's going to cause them to feel unsafe emotionally, or just not want to deal with any type of conflicts that is going to essentially cause them to have to work through things, which is going to inevitably lead them to dealing with some unwanted emotions. So because of that, they constantly kind of have this in the back of their mind, because this is a way for them to feel okay with pushing away from you and dealing with the reality that you could potentially move on from them. So essentially what they'll realize is that what you gave them isn't easy to replace, and this starts to fall apart for them, this thought, this theory that they can just again go out into the world and find somebody else. And because of that, they start to really see the magnitude of losing someone like you, because they realize that it's going to be very hard to try to emulate you exactly in somebody else, which we all know is virtually impossible, because again, we are our own unique individuals, and it's very hard to exactly find someone that's going to bring them exactly what you were able to in the relationship in this new one. The third thing that happens is that the emotional weight comes back when they're alone. When an avoidant has any quiet moments, there is a triggering effect that happens where they start to reminisce on the old memories of how you made them feel seen, or how you showed up in the relationship, or how much love you really gave them and how they felt safe with you. And in these moments, they're starting to reminisce as to how great the relationship really was, and how this avoidant attachment style has really construed and misrepresent what was actually going on, because this is something that an avoidant doesn't really realize a lot of the times that's happening, and that is their subconscious mind is doing this self-fulfilling prophecy where they think that things are wrong, or that there's some kind of threat or something going on that's causing them to need to pull away from you, and they're looking for any evidence of that. And what that typically looks like is that there's something that you did to get too close to them, or you're being too needy, or whatever that might be, which is just a normal effect of you being in a relationship with someone and trying to maybe deal with any conflicts that needs to be dealt with, or just you expressing expressing how you feel for this person and being vulnerable, which is a normal part of being in a relationship with someone. But to this avoidant, they use that as ammunition due to this avoidant attachment style to prove that they're in the right for essentially pulling away from you, because that's how they justify to themselves that this is the right way of being, rather than seeing that this is actually what is the main cause as to why this relationship isn't working out in the first place. So what initially felt like boring or being too much starts to feel like comfort that they miss, and they start to long for both you and the relationship and what you were able to bring. And this tends to be where this avoidant will even try to reach out to you to see where you're at, because they're trying to make themselves feel good that they haven't completely lost you. But chances are they still haven't done what is necessary to work through this avoidant attachment style, and more than likely they're going to repeat this cycle over again once they get comfortable enough to feel like you are essentially going to move on from them completely. The fourth thing is that their control over the situation disappears. You are no longer chasing, checking in, or waiting on them in this moment. So because of that, they can no longer feel that they're in control of the situation, which we know an avoidant tries to do everything that they can to have, because we know that they're trying to control the situations to make sure that they don't have to deal and feel with any unwanted emotions. And on top of that, they also want to make sure that they're not going to completely push you away, because there is a part of them that does actually want to be in the relationship with you, but it's due to this avoidant attachment style that doesn't allow them to express themselves and deal with these conflicts that are needing to be dealt with in order for you guys to have a healthy relationship. So when this happens, they realize that they aren't in charge anymore, and essentially this avoidant is trying to control the narrative of things, because that's what allows them to continue to run this avoidant attachment style without having to address the consequences of that. Because if they can control things and make you believe that it's always been you as the problem as to why this relationship didn't work, they're able to not have to take any responsibilities, and they can continue to be this way without, again, dealing with the consequences of this. So when they realize that they're not in control anymore, this narrative essentially doesn't work, and they lose all control, and everything begins to crumble, and this facade that they had control over everything no longer is available to them, which inevitably leads to this avoidant attachment style no longer working on you. And they're realizing that in real time, and that causes them to panic, because they realize again that they could potentially be losing someone that's the best person that they could ever have in a relationship. And on top of that, it's due to them and not anyone else that they were thinking was the main cause as to why the relationship didn't work, which segues perfectly into the fifth and final thing that you typically see happen, and that is regret shows up in subtle behaviors for them. They'll be watching your stories or refollowing you or sending random check-ins. And this is all intentional because, again, they're trying to check the pulse of things. They want to know, is this really you potentially moving on entirely? Or is it just a play of you just trying to maybe get them to realize the magnitude of losing someone like you and actually hopefully get them to make the changes and show up in the relationship the way that you've always wanted them to? And depending upon how you respond to those things is going to tell them a lot of things and is going to lead to how they're going to react. Because again, if you respond like you typically have been, that this is an opportunity for them trying to actually work through this, and you begin to explore this and open up and express all these emotions, they're going to get comfortable at some point in time. And once they get comfortable enough to feel like you're not going to just disappear on them entirely, that's when that avoidance cycle starts to happen again, and why most people see a relapse where they start to pull away again, and you just go through the same cycle over and over again. And this is where you essentially have to begin to really ask yourself, do you want to continue to have to keep going through this? Do you want to keep playing this game and keep having to be the only one that's showing up in the relationship, who's trying 1,000% to do everything that you can to keep things together, while they're just simply deciding here and there to show up whenever they feel like it? And this is something that you really have to be honest with yourself, because although I know that you do love this person and you believe in the potential of what things could be once this person's able to work through this, they might not be ready to go there right now. They might not be willing to do what is necessary to actually work through this and heal from this. And that's okay. That's on them. It sucks to say that, but it's the truth. And you can't force anyone to do that because it's never going to work. They have to be the main reason as to why they want to do this for themselves, because that's where the true motivation and willpower is going to come from for them to stick to this and actually heal from it, because it's going to be very challenging for them. This didn't just happen overnight. This happened over a very long time when they were young and they were just processing things and they were just developing their mind and their way of being in this world. And because of their caregiver not meeting their emotional needs, they adopted this way of being because that was their only way to protect themselves in that moment. And again, we can empathize with them for this, but at the end of the day, they have to be the one that's willing to put in the effort and energy to try to actually work through this. And it's going to take some time. And that's, again, even if they ever get to a place where they actually want to do that. So I know that this is so challenging to hear, and it might be something that you don't want to accept right now, but it's important for you to consider it because chances are this is what is going on. And I know you don't want to give up on this relationship, but deep down, you know that most likely you are at your wit's end, and it's time for you to do what's best for you to heal and move on from this relationship. I hope that you did enjoy today's video. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.